Hello and welcome to Business Today. I'm Siddharth Zarabi and we are continuing our coverage from the World Economic Forum here at Davos. And joining me now, Rahul Jain, India head of BCG. Welcome, Rahul. Cold, crispy morning, but when it comes to India and the economic story of the country, it's very clear in all the conversations that I have been having, and I'm sure you talking to multiple CEOs, the India growth story is being looked at with quite some interest. How would you describe this moment?
It's an outstanding moment, and firstly thank you for having me here, and Davos is a great opportunity to connect to many, and as you can see it's vibrant and very high contingent of Indian share, both businessmen, executives and politicians and bureaucrats, and everybody is talking about India. And in this increasingly uncertain world, India does provide a very strong platform on many counts. I think a stable growing economy, bound to grow at least 2x if not more of the global growth rate. Very strong risk profile in terms of stability, both in terms of political stability, economic stability and geopolitical stability, and also as a future avenue for supplying material, talent and various capabilities to the world.
So would it be right to say that India is being looked at as a sweet spot, a safe place for investments, given especially the complex global environment, especially around trade and frequent geopolitical changes?
Absolutely. And if you look at the cornerstone of Indian economy, it's a very domestic consumption based economy. So that insulates it a bit with all that's happening around us in the world, right? Indian core foundation of growth comes from its demographic profile, which is strong, stable and is bound to explode both with the young population and per capita income increasing and consumption base increasing. So that's a very stable platform, right? On top of it, there's an opportunity which could completely exponentially change the trajectory if we can get the international business right in terms of export competitiveness, readiness, and in a turbulent time where people are looking at diversification of supply chain and really resilience in terms of business. India does provide as a very strong beacon of hope from a long-term point of view.
The recent push on several trade deals which have already been accomplished, and quite apart from the US trade deal, there is the likelihood of a EU trade deal now, and will be a very significant one. Do you think that will help our export push and kind of take away from some of the negative impacts of the 50% US tariffs?
So if you look at exports out of India account for only 20% odd of our GDP. Right, so that's I think the fact one. The fact two is India has 200 plus trading partners, with no nation being more than 20%. So we have a very diversified trade base, right? That is,
so if one takes a hit, the other cushions.
That cushions us well. And I think the recent FTAs that have already been signed, whether it is with UK or with Australia or with UAE, they already are very good examples of what can be struck bilaterally and provide great opportunity of being on even keel with others. And fingers crossed, if the EU trade deal comes up, it'll be a great opportunity as well. But I think overall, what I wanted to say was, with our strong domestic base and with diversified trade partners, right? I think one or two nations don't swing the needle. I think it's how we manage the broader global context and keep strong bilateral relationships with many that will count.
After COVID, we saw one massive disruption in global supply chains. Companies and other stakeholders started realigning. Now with the tariffs, there is another shock to that whole supply chain system. Is this system coping up? And from an Indian perspective, are there any bright spots you see in terms of supply chain realignments that are underway?
So firstly, if you look at all the board conversations and CEO conversations, I think resilience has become central to strategy. Right? People have moved from only thinking about economies of scale and cost efficiency to actually resilience in business and continuity of business. And as a result, people are willing to move from just in cost supply to steadiness of supply, and everybody is looking at and it's not just COVID. It's been a slew of incidents, whether it is wars, whether it is tariffs. Now in between there were shortage of certain raw material like chips. So most CEOs, most companies want to have business continuity, and for us it bodes quite well. And if you look at what it has done already in many industries where we had a starting advantage, we are beginning to, you look at electronics for example, we have garnered very good share. Of course it's a start and there's a long way to go, but I think we are well placed and I am quite optimistic about this.
In the recent past, we have seen significant American company investments, large scale $15 billion by Google in the entire Andhra Pradesh. There is Amazon, there are other companies. So these are existing investors who are doubling down, and we've also seen Japanese investment, for example, in the financial services space. Does this mean that foreign direct investment, and there was a brief dip that we have been speaking about, is that behind us now, and do you see more of this happening in the near future?
No, absolutely. I think there is as we've been discussing, India provides a strong platform to invest. I think globally, given the level of uncertainty, people have gone a bit slow in terms of decision making. Uncertainty always pauses decision making, and people like to buy time. But I think with the way things are looking, I'm quite optimistic. Whether it is investments in GCCs, investments in AI, investments in manufacturing, investments in various parts of the value chain, I do expect strong. And I think Indian government, whether it is center or state, are attracting international investors to come in with quite open arms. If you look at our ease of doing business, it has climbed several notches, and yes, there is still work to be done, but we are continuously moving up, and as long as we keep working on that, I expect more and more investors to come. US
industrial policy, tariff policy, has been weaponized. And there was a recent comment even about data centers and power and all of that being done out of India by one key Trump advisor. Is this a risk, or is this par for the course that commentary may come, but when it comes to business, that relationship will continue and perhaps flourish?
No, absolutely. I think you said it. I think there is a lot of narrative that gets shaped around these kind of events. But I think in the long run, business sense does prevail. I mean, I've seen this through cycles, and I'm quite optimistic. Eventually, we will come out as a winner.
We are in the age of AI, Rahul, and every conversation that I've been having with CEOs, with policy leaders, AI is front center. It's everywhere. And you could perhaps even call this the World AI Conference in some ways. In terms of India's readiness, preparedness and advance in AI, how would you describe where we stand today?
I think quite well. If you look at the core, what you need is very strong talent base, right? And which India has in plenty, right? You need very strong startup ecosystem to innovate and come with newer ideas, which we again have quite in plenty. Again, if you look at government support, I think with the recent AI policy support that the government has pushed, it is very much on the anvil. So I think we are well placed. Now the stage is such that we have to move from experimentation to scale up, and that will require companies to adopt at scale. And every boardroom conversation today has an AI strategy roadmap, as you're seeing in Davos and as I see with all businesses. And people are thinking of AI not just as a tool to enhance productivity, but also as a new business model to reimagine how businesses will be done, to reimagine how end-to-end business processes work, which are extremely efficient and productive, and which can provide much greater consumer experience. So I think we are well placed, given our talent, given our startup ecosystem, given our policy support. We just need to ensure the scale-up happens adequately.
Last few years, we have seen advancement as far as manufacturing is concerned, particularly in sectors like electronics and others. How much scope do you see for further advancement when it comes to our manufacturing base?
Actually, huge. We are at 16 percent odd of GDP as manufacturing. Nations like Korea are at 25%. We have a long way to go to catch up, right? I think Indian growth in the last few years or the last decades has been consumption-led and services-led. I think the manufacturing movement is now. It will require a set of actions beyond what are being seen. It requires a very strong development of the entire SME ecosystem. Right, manufacturing is not just about assembly. You mentioned about electronics. We are seeing the end-use applications, the assembly lines come together. But now we are in the process of seeing the entire component ecosystem come, and that is when job creation happens. That is when the whole economic growth happens. So that's part one, and that will require supporting the SMEs with financing mechanisms and all kinds of talent mechanisms, etc. Second, I think we need to continue to invest in R&D. We cannot be only a low-cost manufacturing nation. We have to become a very strong, technically advanced and highly quality supply nation. And for that, our R&D spends, which as a nation are close to 0.5% of GDP, needs to go up. If you look at developed world, they are anywhere between 3 to 5%. And that again is an effort that both companies and government needs to collaboratively make. And last but not the least, I think on factor costs, we need to continue our journey. We have moved quite a bit on logistics costs and power costs, if you see with the push on the renewable side and logistics side. But we need to continue the reforms on the land side, the labor side. We need to keep imagining businesses at scale to gain the efficiencies and productivity that we need. But I think with these avenues of R&D spend, SME sector, and scale and cost efficiency, we have a long way to capture. I think with the global geopolitical shifts, we have opportunity to take this from 15, 16, 17% of GDP to 20+%, and that will determine how much our economy grows.
One final question, and this is your thoughts on the defense space. The defense and space sector are seeing startup interest, investor interest, and there's been policy changes. Alongside, I would also mention nuclear energy and the decision to open it up. Is that going to be the big theme in 2026 and beyond?
So defense has already been opening gradually over years, and now I think there is greater openness to attract more and more private players, more and more startups, to get more and more technology in it. And if we need to become, grow at the pace that we have to and become more efficient, that's a need for the hour, right? And not just domestic defense. I think India could even play a role in international defense, especially with markets which are open, because we have ability to do if you look at the auto industry, we have done the whole auto component, play quite well, and many of those parallels apply here as long as we are competitive and we are well placed. So I think there's a decisive moment for the defense industry, and if you look at many companies, they are ramping up their play in the sector, as is visible in the stock prices of defense companies, or the kind of momentum that you're seeing in them.
All right, Rahul Jain, thank you very much for your time. With that, it's a wrap on this conversation. We'll be back with more. Until then, goodbye.
Thank you. Pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.